Hello, everybody. We're talking about Don't Breathe 2. Now, this is one that I saw in the theater, so I was not able to take notes, so this is probably going to be a little bit rambly. I am going to get into some spoilers, but before I get there, I will say I think this movie did a good job of giving you the same but different, or more but different, from the first movie. So, if you liked the first movie, you'll probably like this one. If you didn't care for the first movie, I mean, this one, it gets weirder, and it goes some new places, but it's a lot of the same concept of the first one, of people that underestimate this blind man just getting torn through. But they do it in a different way. There's a bit of a different spin on it, and we get different types of environments. So that's my quick and painless spoiler-free section. So now I'm just going to kind of talk openly. Some of it will be spoilers and some of it will not. So if you're bailing out now, thanks for watching. Goodbye. If you're sticking around, everyone in this movie is horrible except for the kid. And that was true of the first one, but most of the horrible people were less horrible than the horrible people in this one. And I'm not going to give everything away because there's some stuff that I think you got to see it. So I'll reference it. So if you've seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But so the beginning of this movie, he's got a daughter. We don't know where she came from, how he got her. It's revealed throughout the movie. So I was worried that they weren't going to explain that, and I was going to, my main complaint for a lot of the movie was like, I wish I would have seen that story, because there's a time jump of 8 years from the last movie. And so I was like, I feel like there's another story there that I would have liked to see, but we get it filled in, so no problem with the time jump. It's all good, it's all fine. So basically, he is doing the comic book villain thing of training this child from a very young age to, not take anything from anybody. He's got her doing survival tests. He doesn't let her go to school. He homeschools her. She doesn't have any friends. She's not allowed to go into town very often. So, he's training her to be a survivor. And the kid, a lot of this movie rests on the kid actress, and I think she does a pretty good job. I wouldn't say she's the most amazing child actress that I've ever seen, but there was no point in this movie where I was just like, really? Okay, come on. I thought she did a very good job in the role. Some of the stuff she had to do, I wouldn't ask a child to do that, but I don't make movies. So that's where we're at the start of the movie. There are some other bad people that want the daughter for reasons. It never says how old she is. I was trying to figure it out. I don't want to say guess, but the best I can put together from the different pieces that we have is maybe she's got to be older than 10, but she can't be more than 13 or 14. So I think she's somewhere in the 12-ish range. It's hard to tell though, because some kids look a lot older at that age, and some kids look a lot younger at that age. I should know. I'm a teacher, so it's hard to peg down. It doesn't really matter, but in terms of I'm trying to compliment this actress. It's hard to tell how old she is, but I think she does a pretty good job. So other people want this girl for some reasons that we learn about pretty quickly, and then other reasons that are revealed later on. And we get into it pretty quick. I don't think the first movie took a long time to get started. I don't remember. I feel like I probably talked about that in my video. But I felt it was paced pretty well. But this one, I feel like we get into it a lot quicker, and we stay in it a lot longer. The first maybe 20, 30 minutes, it takes place over an afternoon. But the bulk of this movie takes place in real time. I don't know how long the movie is, and I wasn't checking my phone, so I don't want to guesstimate on how long the chunk was. But the big chunk of this movie, the vast majority of this movie, takes place pretty much in real time, other than maybe a couple cuts of travel time, which would have been boring to watch. But a lot of it takes place in real time, which I thought was really great. It was really engaging. So the first one I did not see in the theater. I just watched it here at my home for the first time. This one, it's called Don't Breathe, and not as much as something like A Quiet Place, but a big part of it is that there are quiet scenes where he, as the blind man, is listening for different sounds, different clues for where people are, and they are trying to not make noise. So you want a quiet environment, and I was nervous seeing something like this in a theater because a lot of people at the theaters are the worst. And here's a side rant. My local theater finally opened back up. Yay, I don't have to drive an hour to go to the movies anymore. And they made a lot of upgrades, including fancy reclining seats in the theaters. But with that, you have to reserve your seat when you get a ticket, whether you buy it in advance or you're just buying it there. You have to pick your actual seat. Sometimes I like that, sometimes I don't. Overall, I don't really care. What bothers me, though, is that I picked my seat hours ahead of the show time, right? Way in advance. I picked the seat that I wanted. And it wasn't like an amazing seat. It was just a nice seat on the aisle so that I could get in and out quick if I needed to without bothering anybody else. And then I go there and I like to check before I walk in, who's the closest person near me. I want to make sure if someone's accidentally sitting in my seat, I can be like, oh, you're probably just down there or on the other side, blah, blah, blah. And this was not a very full theater. There weren't a ton of people here, but people picked the seats right next to me. There were 5 seats in the row. Those 2 people were together. And they picked the 2 right next. I'm like, you can't even give me a buffer seat? Come on. Like, when I go with friends, when I go with my family members, I take a buffer seat because I'm a huge person and I need my elbow room. Now, granted, these are pretty wide seats. They're reclining seats. They got nice wide armrests. So I wasn't scrunched up like I usually am when I'm stuck next to someone. But I'm just like, come on, guys. 2 or 3 feet is not going to make that much of a difference in your viewing experience. You couldn't have picked 1 seat over. Has nothing to do with the movie. And it was fine. It didn't cause problem. In the actual movie theater, the guy had his drink on the cup holder on my side, but I had another cup holder, and he went to move it when I got down. I was like, you're fine, man, you're good. And like I said, I still was able to relax, especially with the chair. Although, it's kind of weird when the chairs are recliners, and you and the person next to you are both reclining, because it's kind of like you're laying next to a stranger. Felt a little weird, but I tried not to think about it. So, side rant over, back to the movie. The crowd was pretty good. I was nervous because early on, it's quiet in the movie, but it doesn't need to be. It's not suspenseful at that point, and you got people all over the theater shaking their popcorn, and there are a couple people talking quietly and a couple people on their phone, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is going to be horrible. But by the time they got into it, most of that stuff had died down, and I got to the point where I was like eating 1 piece of popcorn at a time and trying to let it dissolve so I wasn't just chomping away at it. Eventually I just set my popcorn down because I didn't want to make any noise. So pretty good crowd for it. We didn't have any super jumpy people. I was trying to remember if there were any jump scares. I'm sure there must have been some, but there weren't any of the kind that I don't like, where it's like a bird or something. Like, if there was a jump scare, it was a jump scare for the character. It was someone popping out of the dark or something like that. And I'm fine with those kinds of things because that's part of the experience that the character is going through also. But there wasn't anybody, in the theater that was like, oh my gosh! Like, no one was screaming. I didn't hear any big loud gasps. So everyone was... And there was at least 1 kid in there. But yeah, good crowd. That's always good, because sometimes I'm with people that are just the absolute worst. And sometimes I'm the one that's the absolute worst, but not very often. But yeah, good crowd. So, big chunk of the movie. Like I said, it takes place in real time. A lot of quiet parts. We do get a couple different environments. I guess I'm in the spoiler section, so I'm assuming most of you that are watching this have seen it or just don't care. But most of it takes place in his house, but it's a different house. I'm pretty sure it's weird because the basement seems totally different, and there's a greenhouse next to it, and he's got some kind of underground tunnel between his house and the greenhouse. We don't. No, we do see the entrance to the basement, and it's a staircase, so it's not a ladder like in the first movie. But the first movie, there's this pivotal part where I can't remember the. Alex, is his name Alex? I don't remember. The kid from the Goosebumps movies. He falls out of an upper story window and he lands on this like slightly sloped roof window thing over the kitchen, and it breaks the glass and he ends up falling through, and that's like a big moment. And there's that same type of thing on this house. So I was trying to figure out if it was supposed to be the same house or if it just happens to have that thing again. I don't know what you would call that, and I don't know if that's common in certain areas and certain neighborhoods and certain state. You know, it's like maybe it's just that I don't even remember where this movie takes place. Detroit, I think. So maybe it's just that in Detroit or in Michigan or in that area, which is not too far away from me, but maybe it's just common there. But I don't think it was supposed to be the same house. But that there is a focal point on that architectural feature, whatever it's called, again. So that was just a little bit weird. But so a lot of it takes place in his house, and then towards the end we move to a hotel, which they don't do a ton with, but we get a couple different. They got the bit where they're like down in the basement where the power thing is. And there's a nice scene there that deals with some lightly flooded areas, and then the big climax is in the pool room, but the pool is empty, and so there's the danger of people falling over the edge, and it gets pretty deep. So pretty interesting locales. Like I said, they change it up a bit. I went on a bit of a journey with, I guess, the people that are the antagonists. It's hard to tell who's the protagonist and who's the antagonist. In the first movie, very clearly the blind guy was the antagonist, and the robbers, even though they were bad people, were the protagonists. In this, it almost seems like the blind guy is the protagonist, but we know he's a bad person. So it's very weird, because everyone's a bad person. But the outsiders that are intruding on him, they are much worse people than the protagonist of the first movie. And we think we know, there's something said, again, I'm in spoilers now. There's something said earlier in the film about a doctor who's gone missing, and I don't know if they mention kidnapping victims or whatever, but they talk about there's organs going missing from people, and they think that like this doctor is selling stuff on the black market or something like that. And so we assume that these intruders are there for the little girl's organs, and there's some flower delivery lady early on in the beginning of the movie, and they kill her also. And again, at the time, I presumed they were going to take some of her organs, too. And so we think that they're just after organs, and because she's young and healthy, that they're going to go for a good price. At least that's what I thought. That seems to be what they're implying. But then we find out, first big reveal, that the leader of this gang of people is her biological father. Ooh. And, so she kind of finds that out as they're fighting back and forth, and so they take her away from Blind Guy's house, and there's a bit of time where they take her back to this hotel that's like their hideout, and there's a bit of time where I was very conflicted because I'm just like, this is a bad dude, I don't like him, but he's getting his daughter back from another bad dude. So I was like, I can't tell how I'm supposed to feel about this guy. I can't tell if I want her to stay with him. I don't want her to go back to the old man. But at one point she was talking about leaving and going to just a youth shelter. And I'm like, I still want her to do that. But like, I understand that this guy wants his daughter back, but he's not a good guy. They talk about it like they were meth dealers. They grew and sold meth. So I'm like, I don't want her to stay with him, but I feel like I'm supposed to like feel this touching moment of reunion or whatever. And so he like tells her some stuff about herself that she doesn't know and talks about her mom for a little bit. And he's like, you can go if you want to. You're not a prisoner, blah, blah, blah. So she starts to go because she's going to go to the shelter. And I'm like, okay, I think this is the right choice, right? And then, second twist, her mom is alive. So the old man told her that she thought the old man was her father. And he told her that their house burned down when she was young and that her mother died. So that's why I was saying it's hard to tell exactly how old she is. Because she doesn't look like a toddler in the scene where he finds her. She looks like a kid, so she's got to be at least like 4 or 5. But she can't be old enough that she remembers it clearly. So I don't think she could be older than like 5 or 6. So I'm saying she was around 4, and then 8 years later would put her around 12. That's the best I can do. So she is still working under the assumption, even though she now meets her biological father, she still has this assumption that her mother's dead. And so she's getting ready to walk out of the hotel, and then she finds out that her mother is alive, and her mother's there, and she's in a wheelchair, and she's sick, and she's like in the shadows for a really long time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is she gonna have like Freddy Krueger face, like burn marks and stuff? And like, I was like prepping myself, because I wouldn't call this a horror movie, but if I go to a horror movie in the theaters, I got this trick, because I'm legally blind. So without my glasses, I can't see nothing. So if I think something scary is about to come on screen, and I don't want all the people around me to know that I'm a big baby, I'll like pull my glasses down a little bit. And so like, now I'm looking at my, like, I can't see anything with any kind of definition. Right? So like, I can see big shapes. So like, if there's characters on screen, I can tell if they're moving or whatever. But like, I can't see any detail or anything like that. And facial distortion, like what happens with a lot of like demonic movies, that really messes with me. So that's my little trick at the movie theater. So I was like ready to go. I was like, I'm gonna flip this guy down so that this guy laying down next to me doesn't know what a big baby I am. But she comes forward into light, and like, she looks a little, she's a junkie, but she's not visually terrifying other than that. So that was a bit of a heart-pounding moment for me. But yeah, she comes forward and she's like, oh my gosh, you're my mom, blah, blah, blah. The mom's like, can I hug you? Yeah, yeah. So then they're talking, right? And they're catching up, right? And it's, again, I'm just like, I don't want her to stay with these people though, right? Because like, they're bad people. And like, they're clearly not out of the game, right? Because that might have been different if I was like, okay, they learned their lesson, their house burned down, they lost their kid, like, they're just trying to get it back together. But it's clearly not the case. So I'm just like, I can't tell if this movie wants me to want her to stay with him or not. But then, third big twist, turns out that the mother is dying from all the meth vapors that got in her system during the fire, and she needs a heart transplant. And they're gonna kill this little girl and take her heart. And like, for a minute, I thought she was gonna like ask the kid, right? Like, are you willing to do this for your mother to help save my life? And it's just like, what a horrible mother to ask that of your 12-year-old daughter. But like, I was like, I don't know, this kid might be like so lost and like so feeling so validated by having found her mother, like she might say yes. I don't know. But then it turns out that no, they weren't asking, and they had drugged her, and so she falls unconscious, and then she wakes up on the operating table, and then it's like, oh my gosh, they're literally gonna like cut this girl's heart out. And there's like this, I feel like it was probably reaching, but I'm not a doctor, I don't know. And so they do this thing because they're doing it on site, they're not at a hospital, and this surgeon that they've coerced into this, he's like, I can't kill her, because then the heart's dead, and I don't have the proper equipment to keep it fresh. So I've got to cut the heart out of her while she's still alive. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to watch that. And then we like cut away. It's almost like in the Suicide Squad where it's like, meanwhile, Harley, we cut back to the old man. They had set his house on fire and left him for dead, assuming that he couldn't get out. And also, the biological father, his dog at one point had gone in the house to chase after the blind man, and the blind man had a chance to kill him. And there was a whole thing there where I was just like, is the movie trying to make me feel like you're a good person because you're not killing this dog? Because I don't think you're a good person because you do horrible things to people. So, like, you shooting the dog, I guess some people are that's going to lower their thought of you. But, like, to me, what you've done to people is worse than shooting a dog. So he just has him trapped the dog, and it's like his own dog just died. So I thought maybe that was it. Well, it turns out the dog needs to be alive for story purposes because the old man escapes with the dog. And the dog leads him back to the hotel where these other people are. So he goes in there, and then he Batman's the place. He takes the power out, takes the guys out one by one, and we get the big climax. He saves the girl, and then pretty much everyone else dies. There's one goon that like helped him out because he was like, they were gonna kill that girl. That's not cool with me. They're up there. That'll take you to them. Good luck. Go stop them. So it's unclear what happened to him. And then there is a post-credit scene. The first one did not have a post-credit scene. This one does. But the only thing we see it's implied that he's dead at the end. And we see his body again. But the big thing is that we see the dog. The dog comes in and he like licks him and he lays down next to him. And it like the camera goes and it like ends on his hand laying on the ground. So I expected to get like a twitch or something. We don't get anything. So I'm pretty sure he's dead. They put him through a lot. And they left him there with no help. So, at the end of the last one there was like, because the alarm went off. So police and ambulance and everything, they got there. I don't think there's any help coming for him in this one. So I'm assuming the fact that they put in a post-credit scene means that they want to make a third one. I'm also assuming that because these are so cheap, I think this is going to be one of the few movies of the year that actually makes a profit when you consider the marketing budget for movies. Just because it costs so little, they can actually still make a profit with pandemic numbers. So assuming that, I would guess that the third film is going to focus on the little girl. Probably do another time jump and focus on her as an adult. That's interesting to me. I don't know exactly where it would go. She's obviously going to be really messed up, but she's the only one who's like not a horrible person in this movie. And interestingly, the main girl from the first movie, Rocky, she's not in this at all. So like I think I said in my video for the first one, I don't know if the sequel is going to focus on him or her or both. Well, it focused on him, which I thought was good because that's like, that's the don't breathe of it all. Is that you got to have the blind guy there. So I don't know how you do a sequel without the blind guy, but I feel like, they might call it something else and then be like a don't breathe story or something like that. But I feel like they really went through a lot to build up this character. She's the character we know the most about in either of these movies. We've got the most history, the most background, and we spend a lot of time with her. We spend a lot of time seeing her skills, both in training and in practice. We get to know what she wants. She wants friends. She wants to go to school. She wants a social life. So I feel like a sequel could, pick up on her in the shelter and, that age of kids, 12 to 14 years old, kids are jerks. Kids are horrible, right? So, like, I can see a potential storyline of, like, she thinks she wanted this stuff, and now she gets there, and, like, people are mean to her, and she's got this thing with her hair. Her hair is, like, rogue hair, where it's got this one little white streak, so I'm like, people can make fun of her for that. If it's found out where she came from and who her parents are. Like, you know, kids can be merciless. So I feel like there could be an angle of she got what she wanted. Turns out she didn't want that. And, you know, maybe she decides to do something about it. I don't know. I don't want to see her become a villain. But I don't know. Because, like I said, everyone else died. So I don't know why she would be attacked again, unless it's just a random attack from a different group of guys, which wouldn't be that much of a stretch. Maybe someone attacks the orphanage? It's not an orphanage, it's a shelter. Maybe someone attacks the shelter and she has to, like, defend them. And it would be like Wolverine in X-Men 2 when he defends the mansion. That would actually be pretty cool. I'd be up for seeing that. I'm going to stop speculating, though, because then I'm going to build up something which is not going to be what we get, and then I'm going to disappoint myself. So, I have rambled about this movie, I think, quite enough. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Like I said, I couldn't take any notes. So, at this point, I don't have any big nitpicks. I don't have any big, like, well, that didn't really make sense. I don't understand why they did that. That doesn't mean that I didn't have any thoughts like that at the time. That just means that I don't remember them now. And because I couldn't write anything down, I don't have anything to refer to. So, I enjoyed this one a lot. This is the kind of movie that I like, where it's low budget. It is what it is. You go for the atmosphere of the movie, and then it's done, and it's over with. So, those are my thoughts on Don't Breathe 2. Feel free to let me know what you thought, but that's everything that I have. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.